Welcome to Building Better Businesses, an ABA podcast. Learn firsthand from business owners who've built successful ABA businesses. Utilize proven techniques and strategies to help your practice thrive. This is Building Better Businesses, an ABA podcast with Jonathan Mueller.
After a 20-year-long career in behavioral health care, which included founding and exiting an ABA services organization, Tricia founded Behavior Science Technology. Her vision is to develop a clinical performance management SaaS solution like no other on the market. Tricia, welcome to the pod.
Hi, Jonathan. Thank you so much for inviting me. This
conversation is such a long time in the coming.
Yeah.
I'm so excited that we get to dive in on BST and your background as an owner and everything else. But when we first met, and I don't know if it was a year and a half ago, and we were talking about BST, like coming off that conversation, I said, if I had $1 for like every time I asked myself, why can't someone develop a software that like includes treatment integrity checklists and makes them easier? Oh gosh, I would be a rich man. But so like, has BST Performed finally solved this problem for our field?
Yeah, so I mean, we think we did. We have so we basically digitalized, the treatment integrity data collection process, whether it's checklists or different types of assessments and whatnot. We've really captured them all, and they're housed in our system, and really following along with the digitalization of most practices, or most pieces of the ABA business, as far as practice management, data collection on the clinical side. And, and obviously you're familiar with revenue cycle management. But so, I really just felt like, and it's really cool that this is something, that you're thinking about as a business owner. But we just felt like it was so important. I mean, the treatment integrity of our programs is really the core to our services. There's a saying, and quite honestly, I don't remember who, to quote, but we're only as good, the services that we provide are only as good as the folks who are providing them. Mm-hmm. And, for ABA services, and other areas where there is this tiered model of service where you have a certified professional creating treatment programs, but you have others who are actually performing the service or implementing those programs. Like with us, we have our technicians that are, typically the ones that are working direct with the learners. It is so important to be able to monitor the quality of the services. When it's maybe kind of back in the day when BCBAs were providing, more one-to-one direct service, it was a little bit different. But now that the field has shifted drastically, it is so important to make sure that those services are being provided in the way that they were intended. So we just took on the challenge and tackled it.
Yeah, I mean, you're touching on a thread here that, our two-tiered service model where a BCBA is overseeing an RBT who, needs a high school diploma and 40 hours of training to get the quote unquote certification. There's a lot of payers that are scared of that, right? So it speaks and I hear this from payers,
right? That
speaks exactly to the importance of quality assurance. And it's interesting, Tricia, what came to mind here is, how over the past number of years, we've said, how are we still in pen and paper data collection, right? Mm-hmm. And I think more of the field, anecdotally, is moving toward automated data collection. But is over the next 5 to 10 years, are we going to start applying that same question to treatment integrity checks? How the heck are we still in paper and pencil, or, Excel, even Google Sheets? Mm-hmm. And we haven't yet made that leap.
Yeah. We speak to so many business owners, and, small and large, where, folks are confident that they have a process in place. But when you look at the processes that are in place, it's exactly what you said, pen and paper, spreadsheets, Google Docs. And what happens is there's a couple of things, that happen. One, you have where the weight of the world is on the BCBA, because they're the ones that are really have access to that data. They're managing their technicians, their team, and then usually that information just stays with them. It doesn't. There's no way to really look at it from a broader perspective. So organizational leadership doesn't get to see that, and that's one thing that our platform that has been tremendously rewarding for us that we've achieved this. But our current customers, they're giving us great feedback in, what does that having access to that treatment fidelity data mean from an organizational perspective? We have companies who, after a few months evaluating the data across the organization, we're finding, really surprising results that the treatment integrity was anywhere between ranges of 40 to 60%. So you can imagine, and this was just, where the either owners of the organization, clinical directors, the leadership team just did not have access to that data. So that's the other important part of digitalizing it, because it's just easily accessible. The data that, the metrics that you get you're able to use in such a broader way. And then it kind of takes, that burden off of the BCBA. Of course, they want to look at it from that frontline perspective so that they can help their teammate, in the moment, to be able to grow and develop skills and be a better clinician, of course, is what everybody, strives for. But in a holistic sense, the organization then has access to that data where they can be a better organization as a whole. I mean, everybody, you hear anybody and everybody wanting, their goals are to be, the gold star, of ABA, or the top, providers, high quality performance and things like that. So this will, help organizations achieve that goal.
One of the questions, Tricia, that I always like to ask, because everyone purports, and in our field generally, a vast majority of organizations, in my experience, they're here because they're passionate about the high quality services they want to provide, what high quality services look like, the life-changing outcomes that it gets for kiddos. And yet I like to ask this question, well, in one sentence, like, why are you better than the next ABA provider down the street or the 6,000 others? And what data do you have to show for it? What I did not appreciate, maybe up until our conversation right now, is like, I've never heard someone say, oh, because we get 98% treatment integrity check data on high quality programs to start with. I bet the vast majority, or let me ask the question, like,
sure,
how many potential customers could tell you what their organization wide treatment integrity data score is now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's probably few and far between. It's really, again, it's been historically just kept at the level of the BCBA, and the relationship with their teams. And to kind of even take it one step further is we've recently talked with payers, and payers, we've been having these conversations to try to bring awareness to them. Some payers do request treatment integrity, but it's more in like the form of an audit, right? Currently, whereas, they take just a small sample. And so again, they're not even getting the full picture of like really what treatment integrity is like across, an organization. They're getting just this small sample. And, and I was recently at a conference called Value, where it was focusing on behavioral health organizations that are already moving towards value-based care. And a lot of the talk from the payers is that, they started looking at outcomes because it was kind of like, here's some data that we have access to, but they're really, coming to learn that the outcome data is really not telling them what they need to know. There is no direct correlation with some of these assessments, like the Vineland and ADOS and such, that prove that the improvements of, or the outcomes are directly related to the services that are being provided. And this is a conversation that payers are already having out there. So they are seeing that what they asked for is not getting them what they need. But if you look at treatment integrity data, and again, if you have a score for your organization and you can say, our treatment fidelity, the fidelity and of our programs is at, X amount or percentage, then there is this correlation between the outcomes. So we have a Florence DeGeneres Reed, who is one of our advisors, who has done a decade of research on the correlation between treatment integrity scores and outcomes. And, so it's just excited for us to kind of, take that a step further and make it accessible to business owners.
Okay, so I've got goosebumps now because let me play this back. What I heard, that payers, you're hearing from payers that
Mhm.
they are not seeing a correlation between some of the already in use, either norm reference, criterion reference assessments
Right.
that that they're getting reported data on from providers. There's not a correlation between those assessments and the clinical services that are being provided.
Correct. Yeah, because there's a lot of research out there. There's discussion. This came up in a talk that I was at the CASP conference recently. That we know that there is maturation, for example. So we know that some kiddos are going to just develop skills over time because they're aging. So there is no direct relationship to the actual ABA services. So they're starting to question these data and these outcomes.
All right.
Yep.
So this is part of my conviction that our
Mhm.
field is moving much faster toward a value-based world than any of us might envision. And I mean, just think
Absolutely.
about how expensive these services are in this indictment that further reinforces things like the TRICARE, a year and a half ago, that TRICARE
Mhm.
letter that came out that said, 70% of respondents did not have a good experience with ABA. But like, an expensive service that we can't correlate to the right inputs that drive quality of service is
Right.
powerful. So let me ask, what pain points do you hear your customers or prospective customers who come to you? What pain points do they articulate when they don't have this global view at their organization of treatment integrity data?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, most folks are looking for, what we like the broader term of a performance management solution. And so usually their pain points are retention, they're or having to, grow their own talent. As I learned that from an HR consultant that I worked with in my previous life. But yeah, we're investing a lot of money into folks, and some people are struggling keeping those folks in their organizations. And I think that what they're hoping for is just some type of insight into where's the breakdown, where's the problem. And so I think it's interesting, of course we want to look at engagement and culture. Those are absolutely, essential and important parts of building an organization and a good organization, so to speak, or the quote unquote good organization. But what's we find and research shows is that there is, a direct correlation between a person just fundamentally wanting to feel confident that they are doing a good job, and that they feel that they can do their job. I mean, most folks want to be able to do their job independently. So if you think about it, the nature, again, going back to that tiered model, you have technicians who are being overseen by BCBAs who are, there's plenty of, everybody always talks about, how many BCBAs now have just entered the field within the last few years. So there's a tremendous amount of growth in that area. So you have a lot of new folks entering the field. So there's a lot of oversight, a lot of supervision, a lot of mentoring and coaching that's needed. So if you could have access to data, and of course this is the behavior analyst in me speaking, I want to make all my decisions based on data. The hair stands on the back of my neck when I don't have data and I'm guessing. I feel like it's something. I'm like, no, this is wrong. So I think that it's super important for us to use the science, that we have, this wonderful science that's at our hands, to capture the data that's needed to be able to have the the data, or use the data, I should say, to be able to put a plan in place to get those folks to be able to work independently with confidence and just, I mean, I think just in general to just feel good about what they're doing. It is absolutely, and again, I think culture is so important. I think, having a safe and fun work environment is fantastic, but I don't think that supersedes just fundamentally being able to just do your job, and feeling good. Like I think I remember as a newbie in the field, like when I was going into my, first few jobs that I've had when I was younger, I think that was the thing that just was always like nerve-wracking to me, is like, oh, I'm gonna have to deal with my supervisor, and oh, I hope I do a good job because I know they're gonna be observing me, and this kind of like stress that is, that I think we all experience in that type of position. So the quicker you can get someone to be able to work fluently, work independently, and also I think in our field work with a larger, variety of learners, I think that just, empowers folks and makes them feel good about their job and wants them, it makes them want to come back and return to work the next day, because they just know they got this, and they can, just feel good about it.
Tricia, what you just described are the basic building blocks of someone feeling successful and engaged in their career and in their organization. And I mean, like, RBTs are they are the building blocks. They are the workhorses. They're the ones that are in the arena every day with clients. And I have so much profound respect for what they do. And yet our field, in my experience, treats them as, they're going to turn over in 6 months or a year and a half, whatever. And so we don't take the time to invest. But I think I heard this really critical point of, at its heart, BTS Perform is a performance management solution that makes it easier for the supervisor, the BCBA, to set their RBT up to be successful. And that feels game changing to me. And go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. I couldn't have said it better.
Well, I want to dive into this some more, but let's back up a step and tell me about the moment you realized you wanted to make your vision for behavior science technology a reality.
Sure. So yeah, it's a little bit of a long story before I got there, but I'll make it quick. So I was previously an ABA service owner or co-owner. And so I wound up going the route of selling my business. We brought in a private equity to partner with. I stayed on for about 2 years through transition, and then decided, I wanted to do something kind of just for the greater good of the industry. It's kind of like stepping stones in my career. So I wanted something a little bit different and challenging. And but I really feel, I really went the route kind of stereotypical, where by the time I got to the point of exiting my company, I was experiencing extreme burnouts. I was really just, not loving life, unfortunately. So it was a good time period, but so I basically gave myself permission, which I've learned. I work with coaches and stuff, and so they've taught me how to do that. But and I gave myself permission I gave myself a timeline of 6 months, a window to think about, what did I want to do next? And I had some thoughts and ideas and whatnot, but I think it was really helpful. I took a 2-week trip with my family to Iceland and Norway. Yeah, super, super amazing. It was kind of one of the best experiences in my life. My kids were, one was a sophomore in high school and one was a sophomore at college. And so I figured it's kind of probably going to be one of the last times they're going to want to hang out with me. So let's do something exciting and adventurous. And I actually wound up hiking a glacier in Iceland. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever done in my life. It was so super cool. So that kind of shifted things for me, obviously, from burnout to like loving, life and this adventurous trip that we took. But it was really funny because I set out, with this 6 month window, and I think it lasted about 6 weeks. So before I got jumping back in and antsy with, okay, what's next? But it was a great time. I really spoke to, I reached out to folks that I'd already built relationships with and, in the industry. And then I started to just take some risks and chances, and I started reaching out and talking to people who I knew of in the industry, but never actually had a chance to meet before. And just wanted to kind of, I knew that if I was going to do something next, like start another business, I've always learned that you have to be, providing a need, as far as solving a problem. So I wanted to kind of just make sure that I was on top of and understood, what the problems of the industry were. So I really got, great conversations, wonderful feedback, but it was super interesting because it was validating in a sense from, just having sold my business and going through the process of running and operating an ABA organization, that, we were all experiencing the same problems, same pain points. And I think that the main things were, and this was before the pandemic, of course, but it was mainly retention issues, lack of qualified providers. So the competition amongst, providers and trying to everybody, looking for, such limited resources. And then the other thing was just the acknowledgement of that, we as behavior, ABA organizations, we run on very thin margins. So the financials is a huge piece, so it was kind of like, okay, that all just seemed to me like tied together, in some way, shape, or form. It was like, there's something here, and what could be, what is going to be, it's like how many, which problem is the most, important to tackle and all this kind of stuff. So I have a background in industrial and organizational psychology as well. So of course, when I got into behavior analysis, I was really, excited about OBM and organizational behavior management, and the kind of branch of performance management. And this was something that I had tried to look at, implementing in our company. But again, the paper pen, Google docs and spreadsheets process was just really tough to tackle. So I kind of really thought that performance management data could be that kind of one thing that bridges it all together. And so this is always the funny part of the story, is where my husband, who has been in technology for over 25 years, I, kind of thought of this idea. I'm like, well, performance management is a process. I'm like, I know that folks reach out to OBM consultants, and usually there's the goal of implementing like one part of the process. Everybody usually starts out with scorecards, but it's not enough. It is a true process, and when you have a process, doing one part of the process isn't efficient. So I knew this, was going to be something that needed to be digitalized, just like everything else that we have now, in our toolbox. And so I went to my husband. I said to him, is this even, technically possible, what I'm trying to, what I've dreamed up? And he basically said, it was really encouraging. He said, basically, with the right team and the right money, with technology, you can do anything, sky's the limit, which was super cool to hear. And I just thought, well, that sounds doable. We can get a team together, we can, fundraise and see what we can come up with. And then we just kind of, launched it from there.
ABA practice owners, are billing and insurance issues getting you down? Well, let me tell you, Element RCM is your answer. Element provides world-class revenue cycle management services, contracting, credentialing, authorizations, billing, and more. Element's your partner, so you can focus on what you love to do, providing the highest quality services to your families and clients. Element's a preferred partner of the Behavioral Health Center of Excellence, and its founders have nearly 20 years of experience owning and operating successful ABA organizations. They understand you. They know that every dollar counts, that integrity is everything. Element works with any practice management system, and Element's not a vendor, they're your partner. So find out more and take a free revenue cycle assessment at elementrcm.ai. What an inspiring story. And there's so much I want to unpack here. Can I go back there to Iceland? Because
Yes.
my family, I wonder if we were there at the
I wish I
same
could go back
time.
to Iceland right now.
I think it was in 27, maybe 2018. My family went. My kids are all young, and here's how I describe my experience of Iceland. We're the food is not great, right? I mean, the hot dog is the national food.
Yeah.
They have a dish, hakarl, I think it's called, which is fermented shark. I think the late Anthony Bourdain, God rest his soul, described it as the worst thing he's ever put in his mouth.
Yeah.
The weather was terrible. This was June. And guess what? We had far and away like the best family vacation we ever had. Acre for acre, Iceland is like one of the most beautiful places in the entire world. So, I mean, no surprise that some of you, or a lot of, or some part of your inspiration came from getting away in Iceland, right? And you got to sharpen the axe, to make sure the axe cuts well. You got to make sure you give it a rest and sharpen it before you come back.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to highlight, what I heard as you started the business, you just talked to a lot of people and fell in love with the pain points. And what are the pains that are out there? And so for anyone who's thinking about starting a practice, or if you are a small business owner, what I found that is so helpful similarly is just have conversations with everyone, to make sure you understand, the heart, fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve, whether that's, hey, not enough service providers in this area, not enough high quality service providers, whatever it might be, but fall in love with that problem. And at the end of every conversation, say, hey, is there one other person you could recommend that I talk to? And that ends up being this, like, I won't say infinite, but nearly infinite, like, network that you end up building. So that's really like, I love this journey that you described. And I'd love to hear what is our ABA field going to look like if BTS Perform is just wildly successful?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, quality services. It's something I always think about. And this is, my dream come true, is that we're wildly successful so that we can just hope, or I mean, I shouldn't say hope, but help every, ABA organization in a sense that giving them access and visibility to this critical data. I can't express enough. And what's interesting is most business owners, and actually, from the small to mid-sized business owners, it's usually the owners that are needing to look at this. But in the larger organizations as well, there's this lack of awareness of the just the value in that data. It's kind of like a disconnect. Folks are not making the correlation that, the essence of what our business is, the services that we provide. And if we're not keeping, abreast of how those services are being provided, then we're doing a disservice, quite honestly, to our clients, our learners, and the folks that we serve first and foremost. But I think that it's just, we are in this kind of vicious cycle, and I think people are looking at other ways to solve these problems, but not realizing that the solution is kind of under their nose. Because once again, as BCBAs, we know that we need to make sure that our programs are being run with fidelity. That's something that is just a natural part of our repertoire. And so it's being done. The data is being collected. It's just not getting to, to up the chain of command, so to speak, in the organizations where bigger picture decisions are being made.
Well, one of the things that I've always had to counter in myself as I think about technology is not to just go after the next shiny feature, this shiny object, right?
Yeah.
And instead coming back to the idea, fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve, and then like have a framework for how you're going to evaluate one or more technology. Do you have a recommended framework that an ABA practice who's thinking about a technology, but a framework that they can use to effectively and objectively evaluate different technologies to solve that problem?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about exactly a framework, but I think, kind of words of advice, and kind of coming from both sides of the fence, so to speak, I think that what's number one and the most important thing is understand what you're trying to achieve. What is the goal that you're trying to achieve? We speak to many folks who have performance management processes or are taking, treatment integrity data or looking at, how they're evaluating their staff, their clinical teams, and they're kind of caught up in the forms and how and what they're doing, but not why they're doing it. So I will quite honestly, now when we do some initial calls with potential customers, that's where I start. I want to make sure that we can provide a solution for what they're looking for, what goals they're trying to meet, and I think that's just first and foremost. I think just like you said, just because something's new, we're very new to this space, and it's a new type of technology. There's not, anything in our space or like it. And so some people are just curious about that. But then other folks, want to just continue what they're doing, but kind of hoping that you can just make it easier for them, but not realizing that sometimes we do have to abandon, what we've put in place to get the results that we want, and I couldn't, like shout that at the hilltops. Let's go to Iceland and get megaphones so that we could stress how important that is.
Tricia, I'm having like this, like the heavens open up moment. Here's the analog for me. Ready? Imagine I'm not a BCBA, right? But imagine as a BCBA going into a family's home and be like, all right, hey, I got there's this cool token board thing. Let's get started. And the family says, wait, what about the goals? How do we know if we're successful? How are we going to measure this? Yeah. I mean, the heart of why ABA is such a powerful science, right? Because we're setting goals and we're talking about what the future is going to look like. We're relentlessly measuring, but that's the same thing as going into a software and not asking, why am I doing this? What are the goals? How am I going to know if I'm successful? That's powerful stuff. And that applies to any type of technology that we implement.
Absolutely. Quite often, the biggest complaints when someone is unhappy with their technology is because it's not doing what I wanted it to do. So there was this disconnect in the conversation and thinking it was going to do something that they wanted it to do, and it not giving them the results that they, are hoping for.
Listeners, please listen. This is like such. It took me like 15 years of my career to figure some of this shit out, and I was the one asking. I implemented this technology. It was supposed to like change my life and make everything better, and it's not. Why not? Yeah. Start with asking, what's the goal you want to accomplish?
Exactly. I love it. I'll also add too, and this is something that has, it was really surprising and new information just by having more conversations with folks, is that there is also this concept of building your own technology. And this might be, for maybe some of the, larger organizations or mid-sized organizations, but, there is this leap to thinking that we're going to, call in some tech folks and we're going to build because they want it to be, so custom and to the way that, exactly what their vision is. But what I would absolutely caution, because we've learned over time and have seen this, folks get burned by this. It is a business in and of itself to run a software system, and it is not for the faint-hearted, I should say. Neither is running an ABA service organization. But I'm a huge, I don't know if anybody out there is huge Shark Tank fan, and so I always hear Mark Cuban in the back of my head when he says, stick to your core competency. You're an ABA service provider. You are not a technology company, because what people don't understand is building it, working with a firm that will help you develop and build is one thing, but maintaining it and running it is a whole different story. And, technical glitches happen. It's like our technical advisor said when the first time he said when they happen instead of if they happen, my heart sunk. But I had to get used to that, to say, okay, yeah, in technology, stuff's going to happen. And that's, unfortunately, that can just, really just drain you of your, from a financial perspective and resource perspective, it can drain a company and really result in a terrible outcome, unfortunately.
That is one of the other hardest lessons I've learned in my career. It is totally different trying to run a services business versus a technology business.
Yeah.
And when I've tried to do both, I'm not that I have not started a technology company, but I've worked in technology companies. They are fundamentally different
Mhm.
animals.
Yeah.
And that, and it's easy to say, oh, my practice management system doesn't work well, or this part doesn't work. I'm just going to go make my own technology. Just know what you're getting into because it is so hard.
Absolutely.
So I want to come back for a moment to, Marra and Glick, Applied Behavior
Mhm.
Analysts was your organization whom you co-founded, you led and grew for 6 years before selling it. And I just love to hear, like, what's the biggest like insight you gleaned from your time there?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny, but anytime I talk about, that experience in my life, I think, that was the first real major business that I ran. And I think that very quickly, not quick enough maybe, but very quickly, we used to always talk about we used to make a joke saying pivot is our middle name. So I think that's the biggest, and I experienced that in this, running this business now, behavior science technology. It really is, I think, when you run a business, you have to be ready to be able to, and again, the behavior analyst in me wants my data, analyze the situation and be able to have that, alternative path, because we're not going to, everything that you implement is not going to be successful. And I think that being able to pivot, and I think when I'm saying be able to pivot, I think the biggest part is being comfortable with that. As we grew our team, we brought on folks in leadership positions who it was not, easy for them to be able to be flexible, and realize that everything we put in place is not going to work, but we have to be able to make change and move quickly and look for a different direction.
Mm. Words of wisdom, being able to pivot in much the same way. If you're delivering a treatment protocol that doesn't work, are you going to keep, and the data tells you, are you going to keep doing it, or are you going to consider alternatives and
Yeah,
pivoting?
exactly.
Tricia, what's one thing that every ABA owner should start doing? What's one thing they should stop doing?
I love this question. I have to say it's a coincidence that you asked that, because we started a campaign and we talk about stop delivering service at any cost and start delivering cost-effective service. So, which has really been, we came up with this concept from what we've been learning, as speaking to potential customers, our current customers. And there has been this kind of unfortunate circumstance that our industry is going through, with so much change that has happened in the last few years. I mean, everything, I can go down the list of the insurance mandates. So demand is up. There's been an increase in providers, which is an amazing thing, but there's challenges that come with that. Private equity coming into play, and all these different changes within the field. And so from my perspective, it seems like there's almost this frenzy going on. I think of, like, sharks feeding, and it's like everybody is trying to keep their head above water. Everybody is trying to do whatever it takes to provide services to get those folks off their wait lists and things like that. But yet, I think we're losing sight of, again, falling back to the science that is so incredible that we have at our fingertips, using data to make sure we're making good decisions and effective decisions, and not this, deliver service at any cost kind of concept.
The stop delivering services at any cost, start delivering cost effective services. That is like that's the foundation of a value-based care world that we live in,
Yeah,
that we know our field's going to move toward.
absolutely.
Powerful stuff. Tricia, where can people find you in behavior science technology online?
Yeah, so we're very active on LinkedIn. We also have a Facebook page. And so that's basically our social media channels.
Awesome. So are you ready for the hot take questions?
Yes, sure. I've been
All right.
waiting for this.
Yeah. All right, you're on your deathbed. What's the most important thing you want to be remembered for?
I think it's just so simple, just that I was a kind person. I think kindness is the core to being a human being.
It is. And I heard this expression once, throw kindness around like confetti. And I think it's so true, especially in our world today.
I love that.
What's your most important self-care practice?
Oh, so this is fantastic. I've really done a lot of work in the last couple of years in self-care, but the one thing that has stuck and I think is critical for me is journaling. I live in my mind and I need to sometimes, just get that stuff on paper and get it out of there. And I actually found the best tool is a 5-minute guided journal. So so it literally has the guided prompts to say, what are you grateful for? And, what are your goals for today? What's your mantra for the day or something like that. And I start every morning. I have my cup of coffee and I do my little 5-minute journal. It's fantastic.
That is powerful. I mean, just being able to show gratitude in journaling, there's a lot of research around how that has all kinds of positive benefits. Well, if you could cancel all your meetings, skip responsibilities for a day, how would you spend the day?
Oh, if I had the choice, I would be kayaking with my family, preferably a lake in like New Hampshire or somewhere up north. But kayaking, hanging out with my family, I think that would be like my ultimate.
I've spent many, many fond days on Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire and other lakes. It is just, there's something special about summertime and lakes and boats and stand-up paddleboards. Oh yeah, we're gonna have to do that one day. I'm holding you to that. Tricia.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do it.
Favorite Madonna song?
So I am, not to give away my age, I mean I will, but when Madonna hit, the world, I was 13. So 13-year-old girl, you can imagine Madonna was anything, and everything to me. I idolized her. So Borderline was the first song that came out in 1983. So again, I was 13 years old, and I just thought, I was obsessed with it. So that has to be my ultimate favorite.
Borderline and keep on pushing my love. I'm not gonna. Sorry, I should not be singing, but that, I mean, is one of however many songs Madonna has, why she is one of the greatest of all times. And I forgot that it was so early in her career.
Yeah,
like 83. I would have quoted late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, and just her iconic in her. I mean, that was back in the day. MTV was doing music videos and stuff, but so just like her, edgy look, and I was like a nice little proper young girl, and I just thought, oh, she's so cool.
Oh, BA, she was, and for a young impressionable boy like me, same thing. I love Madonna. If you could give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
That's a tough one. And again, I've worked with some amazing coaches. I think the one thing that has been so helpful in my later years is to abandon your, they refer to it as your limiting beliefs. It's kind of like take on that concept of like anything's possible.
Abandon your limiting beliefs. I mean, it goes back to that notion that we are, it's our mind and it's ourselves that who are the ones who will limit the full potential we can grow into.
Absolutely.
Love it. So you can only wear one style of footwear for the rest of your life. What would it be?
I'm actually wearing them right now. Oh my God. I live in sandals. My Merrell specifically, it's not just any sandals, but I have these Merrell. They're not exactly slides, but I don't even know what the heck they call them, but they're the most comfortable shoes on the planet. And I can wear them kayaking. I can wear them, around the house. They're amazing.
I love sandals too, but can I tell you, Merrell's are my favorite shoe brand.
Oh,
so if you're on YouTube, go check out our YouTube channel. I'm pulling my Merrell's up. It's the rainbow. These are not. Those are gorgeous sandals. I've just got some like tennies, some sneakers. But hey, here's to the Merrell crowd up top.
Yes, high five.
We are, and this show is not endorsed by Merrell. Just to be clear, we're just huge fans. Tricia, this has been so much fun. Thank you for all you're doing to promote high quality services and for supporting ABA practices.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for having me. It's been fantastic. It's so much fun. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Building Better Businesses in ABA podcast. Stay tuned for our next exciting episode. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. We value your feedback. Don't forget to follow us on social media at elementrcm.ai.